Ever since I can remember, we always had one of those old vintage Parker Brothers Ouija boards sitting in our closet, collecting dust. When I was a kid, I always wondered what it was. From the box, it seemed like a silly board game, until one day I found out what a Ouija board really is, and immediately dug out a closet. I insisted my brother try it with me, and eventually got him to play along. We put our hands on the planchette, and I began asking the typical cliché questions like, "Is there anybody there?" And "Can you answer me?" Other than my brother jokingly moving the planchette to imitate answers, there was no real response. After getting bored, we put the game back in the box. That night, I did a little research and found that many people online said the ideal environment for using a Ouija board is a dark room lit only by candles. So, when my parents were out of the house, I gathered 6 or 7 candles and convinced my brother to try it one more time. I set the candles around the dining table, turned off all the lights, and we tried again. I asked if there was anybody there. The planchette began to move. I told my brother to stop moving it, but he swore he hadn't. I told him to move his hand away. He did, but the planchette kept moving. My brother thought I was messing with him, but I wasn't paying attention. The planchette landed on yes. I was only 9, so I was legitimately terrified. My older brother took over. He asked, "Are you a good spirit?" There was a 5-second pause before the planchette moved to no. We looked at each other, and I ran to my room and shut the door, but he continued with the so-called game. I heard his muffled voice coming from the dining room. Then suddenly he screamed at the top of his lungs. I ran downstairs to see what was wrong. He was holding up his shirt, revealing a small open wound that looked almost like a claw mark. He told me to light the fireplace immediately. I obeyed. He threw the board into the fireplace and told me never to speak of what happened to anybody. We never used a Ouija board again. A while later, I got a call from my cousin. He said that he, his brother, his dad, and his best friend had been using a Ouija board in their basement. Before they started, they'd taken a large porcelain doll out of the room because it was creepy and placed it face down in the adjacent room on a pile of towels. My cousin left the session briefly to go to the bathroom because the board kept giving nonsense answers. While he was gone, the others asked the board questions without him. One question was, "Who is in the other room?" It started spouting random numbers. When my cousin returned, his brother said it wasn't working and that they were going to put it away. He showed my cousin the answer to the last question and said, "Dude, that's my social security number." They kept talking to whatever was responding. The board told my cousin he would die in the Air Force. To prove it, they asked it to spell something. It spelled day, and they immediately felt uneasy. They opened the door to check on the porcelain doll. They'd left in the other room. When they opened the door, the doll was standing upright in front of the door, staring at them. Everyone freaked out and ran out of the house. His best friend burned the Ouija board, and I think he had a few months of serious psychological trouble after that. My cousin, for reasons I still don't understand, later joined the Air Force and is now stationed on a base in Europe. I had some friends over one night, and we tried out a Ouija board we'd found in someone's garbage. It had the board and the glass piece you hold on to. The 4 of us held the glass and asked stupid questions, mostly messing around. At times, one of us would move the glass to try to fool the others. One friend went to the bathroom and another got bored, so it was just me and one other friend holding the piece. I asked the board when I would die. The piece slowly moved to the letter T. I looked at my friend thinking it was him moving it, but he said he thought it was me. The piece then moved to O, then M, then back to O, then R, spelling to more, and then it stopped. I was convinced my friend was doing it, but he swore left and right that he wasn't. The next day, while walking my dog in preserve, my dog's collar suddenly snapped and he ran free into the road. I chased after him and heard a car horn blaring. I dove out of the way, just barely grazing the car with my foot. But it didn't end there. The same day, while sitting under the ceiling fan in the kitchen on full blast, I got up to get something out of the fridge, and behind me, I heard a loud crashing sound. All the glass on the table shattered, and everything fell to the floor. The fan had come off the ceiling, and I was inches from being decapitated. I don't know if it's a coincidence that the day after the Ouija board said I would die, I had two near-death experiences, but all I know is I'm never touching a Ouija board again. I'd never really told people about this. We had a huge closet full of old board games, and one of them happened to be a Ouija board. I always wanted to try it, but my family was usually home, and I felt weird doing it in front of them. One weekend, my parents went to the city, and my brother went on a Boy Scout campout, so I would have the whole house to myself. I might have been pathetic. I was more excited to try the Ouija board than to party with friends while the house was empty. The weather was terrible, windy and rainy, which somehow made it feel more ritualistic. Around midnight, I set the board up in the dining room and dimmed the lights. I asked a bunch of questions that generated no answers, so I eventually put the board away and went to bed. I woke in the middle of the night to a creaking noise downstairs by the front door. At first I thought nothing of it, but then I heard it again, closer this time, nearer the stairs. I sat up and I was getting concerned. Another creak came from one of the stairs. I was sure somebody was in my house. This was before cell phones were mainstream, so calling the police was an option. The creaking grew closer until it was right outside my door. Then it stopped. It felt like hours while I lay there clutching my covers, waiting for something to happen. A huge strike of lightning momentarily lit my bedroom, and for a second I swear I saw black, limb-like shapes wrapped around the open door. I tried to hold my breath and stay as quiet as possible, but then my door slammed shut and I couldn't help but scream. I curled under the covers, shaking and crying, wanting to run but frozen. All the windows in the house were closed, so there was no draft, nothing to explain what had just happened. I stayed under the covers for hours, convinced something was in the room with me. When the sun started to rise, I finally peeked out. My room was empty. I found the courage to search the house for signs of a break-in. Everything looked normal. No broken windows, no unlocked doors. Then I spotted the Ouija board on the table again. I've always been superstitious, so I immediately linked everything to the board. I chucked the thing in the outside trash can and brought it out to the curb. Since then, nothing else has happened. I didn't tell anybody about it. You wouldn't understand unless you'd been in that kind of situation. Nobody would believe you. The only people who know are the readers of my story online. I'm convinced those events were linked to the Ouija board. I can tell you from personal experience that messing with a Ouija board is a huge mistake. It was the summer of 2013. My friends had a vintage Ouija board that was allegedly worth a decent amount, and one friend agreed to trade it with me for a video game I never even played. I happily made the trade. I tried using it alone once, but it seemed like a scam. I didn't expect it to work. I mainly got it for the money I could make off it. I threw the board on my living room floor and forgot about it. The next morning, I woke to find the two plants on my coffee table knocked over and the Ouija board sitting on the table. I didn't remember putting it there, and wind couldn't explain the fallen plants. I wondered if I'd sleepwalked or gotten up half awake and bumped into them. I moved everything back into place, but the carpet already had dirt stains. I brought the board up to my room and tossed the box on the floor. That night things got worse. While lying awake in the dark, I heard a muffled clicking sound. I looked up and saw, through the cracks of my closet door, that the closet light was on. I had no idea how it could have turned on, but I got up and opened the door. No one was there. I turned the light off and jumped back into bed. 10 minutes later, I heard the clicking again. The closet light was on once more. I turned it off and got back into bed, my heart sinking. I waited for the light to click on again, but instead the whole room suddenly filled with light as I heard the main light switch flip. That was enough for me. I was out the door within seconds. I quickly took that old Ouija board to the dumpster, and after that nothing weird ever happened again.